This is the Welcome to Humanity podcast with thought leader and transformative psychiatrist, Dr. Fred Moss. This show focuses on the betterment of humanity on a global scale. Each episode will leave you enlightened, inspired, and ready to make an impact in your world. Welcome to the show. Welcome to your life. Welcome to humanity. Here's Dr. Fred.
Welcome to Humanity, listeners. Today, it is a complete honor to be with my good friend, a friend for a couple years now anyways, and someone that I have looked up to both literally and figuratively as a man who is off doing stuff in this world, a man who is really having some degree of a life that's worth watching. And it's really, I have only had a few conversations with Earl Jones in my life, but in those conversations, and I'm sure we both can remember some of those, Earl, it has been very clear that there's a life being lived. There's an opportunity being looked at. There's where can I be a contribution? Those kinds of things are the kinds of things where Earl and I have interfaced in the past. So today it is my honor to have as a guest, Earl Jones. Earl, thank you for being on the call.
Fred, thank you. Wow. I'm shocked. I am 6'5", so you do have to look up at me. Yes.
I know. I don't have to look up to that many people, actually, being 6'3", but there's no question that I have to look up to you. That's true.
I know. So thank you for having me on the show. I'm super excited. I'm just wow.
You're ready.
Okay.
This is exactly right. This is where we wanted you, right here. This is where we wanted you. We caught Earl by the tail, and this is where we wanted you. So, Earl, I'm gonna ask you a few questions about yourself, and really, so my listeners and your listeners can get another view of who they think you are, or who they haven't met yet. So if you've listened to this show before, you've heard me talk often about my new book titled Creative 8, Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression. I'm thrilled to say that it's finally available on Amazon.com in both paperback and Kindle format. I finally received my paperback copy, and I have to say, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. It's a short little book, easy to read, with bright, beautiful pictures throughout, and the message is pretty powerful. I'm still offering listeners of the Welcome to Humanity podcast a free copy of the audiobook as a deep thank you for listening to the show, and all you need to do to get it is go to welcometohumanity.net/creative. I've used this Creative 8 methodology with psychiatric patients, coaching clients, good friends, and even family for several years now, and I've had just amazing results. And the method takes less than 5 minutes a day to implement, and it really works. You can get a copy of the Creative 8 audiobook today on welcometohumanity.net/creative. Now, let's get back to our conversation with Earl Jones. One of the easy questions I ask for Earl is the first question, which is, so Earl, what are you doing? What are you about? What's important to you? Give us a little clue what Earl Jones is about.
Oh, okay. How many minutes do I have? Good.
Yeah, go ahead and take it on in 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, whatever it takes, whatever you work.
So, me, I am a person who's everybody around me has to live big, right? And what I mean by that is that I want if I died tomorrow, there better be somebody that could say my life is better because of Earl. That's number one. I came up with that decision after, I don't remember what book I read, but it was that's the purpose that I have, right? The second thing about me is that, a lot of people don't know, but I served proudly in the United States Army, spent 4 years on active duty and 4 years on reserve. Best time of my life. I also own an insurance agency here in Sunnyvale, California. But the way that I do insurance, I do it from the point of view of if something goes south, I don't want there to be any problems with the claims process for my customers. So I really make sure that I understand everything about them, because I'm taught to look for what can go left or right. They're not. And it's easy for me just to sell it based upon price, but I don't do that because I myself have been sued. My mom has been sued. So I know what that's like. And then the other thing about me is that I must live my life such that my nieces, my nephews, my cousins, the kids, after me when I was born, they have me as an example to look up to. Not a football player, not a basketball player, right? Me. So what that looks like is that my middle nephew owns his own investment agency. My cousin is again almost done with getting her physician assistant's degree. My second cousin she just graduated and she's getting ready to go into physician assistant school. My oldest cousin, she finally graduated. My sister graduated, but from college. So our family is really thriving because I've made that my mission. And the other day, my oldest nephew said, Uncle Earl, you better get your stuff together because I'm looking to you to be an example. So whatever you're dealing with, fix it now. I was like, yeah. And he's 28. He's 28. And I was like, okay. Like,
yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
Okay.
It's sort of like you're the one who set the stage for people to look up to you, and then they're now holding your feet to the fire as being that man, is what it sounds like.
It is, but that's how I live my life, so that I am known as a person that's consistently delivering that which makes a difference, right? That, that's just who I want to be. And it may take me a while to deliver on that. But at the end of the day, I live my life so that I'm above reproach, and I own my mistakes. I own my faults, and I admit it. And it served me well that when you have a 28-year-old who says to you, I'm looking to you to be an example, and he's just your nephew, I must be doing something right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, Earl. That's a really, really great introduction to who you are. And I already got a really expanded view of the kind of man that you are, not only in your family and not only in your community and in your business, your insurance business, but who you are for the world. Like really, no kidding. I'm a better person because I met Earl. It sounds like what I hear you saying is that's in your core, that better happen. Like that's what you're here for, is to make a positive difference for the people around you.
Correct. Even if it's just a meet and greet at Target, right? If I'm going to the Target, and I still want to make sure I leave a nice impression on that person, because I don't know what they're going through. Maybe my simple thank you or how are you doing? Maybe that could be the turnaround point where they don't go off and commit some type of craziness.
Isn't that great?
But it's also about recognizing that as a human being, we are responsible for how we connect with the other human beings around us. Literally, we are a circle of life, and my circle interacts with your circle. I may not like your circle. I might not like the look of your circle, but my circle still is going to interact. So I can either choose to be resistant towards your circle, or I can choose to find a way to cohabitate with your circle that respects your circle and my circle. And maybe together we can do something, awesome, like go have cocktails or something. But I'm reminded of when I lived in, Clarksville, Tennessee. After college, I went to Austin Peay State University. And people used to say to me, aren't you scared of walking through the streets of Pulaski, Tennessee, trying to sell security systems? I was like, no, because those people want the same thing I want, which is if somebody breaks into my house, I want every fighting chance I can get. And I sold a lot of security systems in Pulaski, Tennessee. One customer, I remember, he said, my dog normally barks at colored people, but my dog just cannot stop following you around. I said, that's because your dog knows that I am here to do one thing, protect him.
Isn't that great?
That is great.
Yeah. Like dogs are like the ultimate lie detector, right? Like good person, bad person, put them in front of a dog and see what happens. And then we'll be able to tell you afterwards.
That is correct. And the dog was a pit bull. And it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And just literally like followed me around the whole house and sat at my feet and just let me play with him. And like, they let me give him treats. And that was like the highlight of the sales call, right? Which was being with their dog.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. Like that's, yeah.
I want to go back to something you said when you were telling us a little bit about who you are, Earl. And I didn't know this about you. I thank you for your service, by the way. I think that, and if you want to bring that up again in this conversation, I think there's probably all sorts of rich storylines and rich meat right in there if you wanted to tell us a little bit about that. So I didn't know that about you. And thank you so much for your years of service to the United States Army. In your insurance business, you mentioned that, it's up to you to be the expert. It's up to you to get to the details. It's up to you to have the person, when something goes south, be able to lean on you, like to know that they're leaning on someone who's going to take care of every nuance and every intricacy. That's what I heard you say. And that's part of your commitment, is going right down to the, very bottom line and making sure that everything is managed properly, especially in the face of an emergency or in the face of a catastrophe that they come to you to file a claim. Can you say a little bit more about how you became an insurance man, and what does this style of dealing with people in life, where did that come from, and how did this become a core value for you?
That is a very good question. How do I explain this? So back in 2006, when I first moved to California, I'll just go all the way back. State Farm reached out to me in 2013 and asked me to interview with them. And I started the interview process, and I was like, stop, because they were asking for like way too much information, right? Mm-hmm. Fast forward, I was in B2B sales with a bank here in the Bay Area, and then I switched over to another bank. And I've always had this rule that everybody has to win in all of my business dealings. No one person can feel like they walked away with the advantage or somebody got cheated, right? We don't do that. I strongly believe what Brian Tracy said, create win-win when all your dealings, right? So then 2016 comes around, State Farm calls me again. I'm like, well, lightning doesn't strike twice. And I started to go through the interview process. And then I started to recognize that being an insurance agent is just a continuation of my belief that, in banking, when I work with the customer, I'm like, how do I get a client from point A to point B through the bank world in such a way that everybody wins, right?
And then I love that, Earl. I just adore that. And I'm sure I'm speaking for my listeners. It's just your commitment just shine. It's like I feel myself being drawn to count on you, and not, in the proverbial and real foxhole, like, oh yeah, this is Earl. I'm with the right guy. I just want to let you know that that's the impact you're making, just telling your story. Please continue.
Oh yeah. So I went through the process with State Farm, started my agency in 2017, December 2017, and went through that process. And then there was a few things that happened that let me know that I was in the right spot. Number one, I had a client whose husband passed away unexpectedly. Just, in his early 40s, passed away. And she wasn't sure about like if he even had life insurance or what was going on. And so I went in and I dug in and I figured out like, how do we get this money to her ASAP? Because the insurance he had only at work was only a month's salary, which was like a couple of $1,000s. And when I told her when I called our claims department, got the information that we needed, got that from her, I then had the claims team escalate the processing of her claims check. And so when I took her that check for $98,000, that Asian woman, who is probably about 5'4", she hugged me so hard that I couldn't breathe. And I will never forget when she said, "You just saved me," because she said the cost of the emergency room was like $10,000 plus the cost of the funeral. And now she has money to pay her bills, like the cost of the funeral and continue to make the payments on the house, because the house payment was based upon two incomes. And she squeezed me so hard I couldn't breathe. That was one situation. A second situation that happened was that I had a client who was involved in an accident. She had the right of way. and a person hit her car with their bike. And somehow, some way, the claims adjuster, decided that my client was at fault. And when, let's just say her name is Leslie, called and told me what was going on, I was like, I heard it in her voice. I was like, she was confused. And I was like, what was the intersection? Now, I don't have to do this as an insurance agent, right? I can let the claims process go the way it goes. But when she told me the intersection, I Googled the intersection and I pulled it up on Google Map. And I was like, you were going in the direction that, you had the right way, because the other side says cross traffic does not stop. I immediately got off the phone with her. I called our claims team. I asked for a supervisor. And within less than 24 hours, State Farm had to reverse their decision. And
Amazing.
But that did more than that. We had to take the points off her driver's license, because when you have an accident in California and you're at fault, you get a point, or it gets registered with the DMV as your fault. So we had to undo all of that. Undo all of that. And then, unfortunately, State Farm said that I wasn't good enough to be an agent, and then decided not to renew my contract at the end of 2018. Then 2019, I decided to go over to Farmers, and it's the same thing. I strongly believe that if you're going to get insurance, you have to get the insurance such that I cover all the bases, because here in the state of California, if you're at fault, nothing that you own is excluded in terms of compensation towards the person that you've injured, right? And since I know that, for me to do anything less than protect a person's total lifestyle is just uncouth. It's just, I would much rather, I'd rather do something else if I'm not going to protect. Or in some cases, I've just told people flat out, well, you can't be my client, because I don't want that experience, because I just can't live with that, because I'm responsible for how their claims experience go, even though I'm not the claims adjuster, but I'm still the face that they see.
There's something here that I wonder. Let's see if I can. There's something here about your loving protection of an exceptional experience. This is what's coming through over and over again for me, Earl. There's like a loving protection of the exceptional experience of anybody who interfaces with Earl Jones. Is Earl Jones's responsibility to assure that that's going to take place.
That is correct. I believe in keeping my word, even though I know I can't control what happens on the other end of Farmers, right? But when something doesn't go the way that I say it should go, I get involved to get it to go that way, or figure out, did I make a mistake? And if I made a mistake, then I own it, and then I do what needs to be done to fix it for the customer. Because again, the customer doesn't know the insurance world. I do. I'm the one that got the test, the license, and the bond, right? This is my responsibility. And yeah, that does mean that people are going to pay a higher price, because, Farmers isn't the cheapest on the market, right? But at the same time, I would, I've heard stories of people who were improperly insured and wind up losing millions of dollars, in real estate assets, because their son hit somebody while on a bike. You don't have to go through that. If that insurance agent had simply said, hey, you own millions of dollars of real estate, we need to protect that real estate. This is part of your lifestyle. This is what it costs. Great. But I have a funny feeling that I don't know if that happened or not. I probably assume it did not. But if they were my client, Farmers would have just simply wrote a check. And I had a situation happen where a customer of mine, brand new customer, was in a car accident and was already having some challenges with the claims experience. And he called me while I was in Kansas City visiting family for the holidays. And when I got off the phone with the claims department, all of his problems were fixed. Because I was like, did I write the policy wrong? They were like, no. Is there something that we're missing? No. I was like, then why are we not having an experience consistent with the brand Farmers? And that person, we got him the car rental because I protected him from head to toe because he makes more than, $100,000 a year.
Right.
So I knew that the person that makes that kind of money does not want to have to deal with the nuances. He just wants to come in, boom, over. I don't have to think about it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Earl, let me ask you a difficult question. And this goes a little bit towards it's I think you can manage. It's not that difficult. Nothing to fringe about. Here's what I got. It's I really get your love. I know you. I see your stature. I see your smile. I see the way you walk and talk to others. I know your sense of humor, and I know who you've now become. And now I've learned another dimension of you inside of who you are for your friends and for your cousins and nephews, and who you are for your insurance clients. And really this thread that runs through it, that your commitment runs as deep as depth can go to not only making a positive impact on the people around you, but to being thorough and being protective and being loving of anyone who has the good fortune of meeting Earl Jones. I totally get that. And I think you would confirm that that's close enough to who you are at this time, right? Like, that's fair.
That is fair.
Okay. The next thing I want to ask is, my guess is, Earl, that hasn't been the case 100% of your life, and that something, maybe a crucible moment or a time when you were a teenager, or a time when you were, before the army or something, where Earl may have not been exactly that level of commitment. And I'm wondering if you can walk myself and my listeners through the transition that took place to bring Earl Jones to this, level of humanity that you're presently displaying, because my guess is there has been times when Earl Jones wasn't exactly that same guy.
That is a very good question. And I would have to say I didn't develop this until my late 20s, early 30s, when I started to take a serious interest in personal growth and development. When I bought my very first Tony Robbins program, which I can't remember what it was. I was up late one night and I bought it and I listened to it and I listened to it repeatedly. It was when we had the portable disc players and you had to push the little anti-skip when you were driving in your car.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So Awaken the Power Within, I think that is the one. And that was the start of the journey of personal growth and development for me. Prior to that, in college, I had read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich book because I started a resume writing business. And I was doing that. But the real change, the real transformation took place when I decided to start investing in my own growth and development. And that's when I started to realize that I'm not here on the earth just to be cute, right? I have a purpose. There's things that I can do to make a difference for people around myself. And then that got amplified. When I had my second nephew, Teddy, when I had my second baby, Teddy. I always call them my babies. They'll tell you that they're my babies, even though I'm not their parent, but I treat them like they're my children. And when he was born, life really just took on a whole new, change, because things happened. And then I wind up becoming like the father figure for him. And I don't know all the details what happened, but, in the end, Teddy started to look at me not just an uncle, but as a fatherly role model. So when you have that little guy, even though he's not yours, but you can still hold him like a football, you don't have time to be selfish, in my opinion. I've got to live my life such that he has a path to walk in, right? Mm-hmm. It was that. And then the other time that it showed up was when he called me one night. He was in high school And he said, Uncle Earl, I want a date night. And I said, okay. So now I'm in my 30s. And he says, I want to talk to you. I want a date night. I was like, okay, fine. I'll come pick you up. Go to his favorite restaurant at the time, which was Red Robin's. And then he proceeds to tell me that he's, applying to college. And these are the schools he wants to look at. And you should have seen my face, Fred. I was like, holy slap a turtle. Like, how am I going to make this happen? Like, how am I going to support my sister in making this happen? Right. My sister's a single mom, by this time she's got 3 kids total. And I'm like, how are we going to do it? And I said, baby, whatever you need, we will find a way to do it. And so, yeah, that was that. And in there somewhere, I did the Landmark Forum. And then I think that was also another transformative moment for me. But yeah, it was like little bits of pieces. But I would probably say the biggest one is when my baby decided that he wanted to go to college. And then when he showed me the letter that he got accepted with the full ride scholarship, we still had to come up with $10,000 just to get the boy to school. And Uncle Earl, I made it happen. My sister will tell you, I found a way to make it happen. Because he was not asked to be born. But because he's here, it's our responsibility as adults in the family to make sure that he has what he needs to win. And now he owns his own investment firm.
Amazing, Earl. That's really beautiful. I love what you're saying. I'm really moved by who you are as a person. And one of the things I'm hearing, this idea that you just said, he did not ask to be born, but now that he's here, it's up to us to take care of him. It's up to us to make sure that he gets what he wants in this world. It's right. Is this what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying about my oldest, my middle one. Now I got all of them. That's the way I feel about all the kids in my family. They weren't asked to be born, but now they're here. I'm going to do my part to inspire and motivate and demonstrate to them that I have their back. They have my confidences, right? I send them text messages every now and then of YouTube videos that are motivational. I'll send them recommendations for books to read, audio books to read. They'll send me recommendations and we'll get them right? Because it's not the TV's responsibility to raise my children.
Exactly.
Putting them in front of an iPad, that's great. That's wonderful for a little bit of time. But at the end of the day, as their uncle, as their older cousin, it's my responsibility to set the standard. And they will. My oldest nephew Dion said, "Uncle Earl, I don't like coming to you because when I ask you for help, you have strings attached." I said, "You're absolutely right, baby. My strings is that you live your life to the fullest, and that you always try to be the very best that you can. Now, if you want my help, that's the cost of me helping you. But if you don't want to do that, then fine. You do it your way and you just tell me the results that you got and then we'll just keep it moving, right?" But he used to tell me, it's like, you always have strings attached. My cousin Nakia will tell you that. Oh yeah, if Uncle Earl helps you, he wants you to do better because he knows that you can.
So if Uncle Earl helps you, the strings that are attached is you have to live live a wonderful life or something. You have to actually make something of yourself. That
is correct. That is the strings. Yes. I don't ask for much because these kids are my legacy, whether, and I get it that my view of them is different than, what's out there. But I look at these kids, these are my legacies. They're my legacies.
That's awesome. So Earl, I'm looking a little bit at some of the information you sent us before this conversation, and it's all making a whole lot of sense to me now. So I totally appreciate it, and using it as sort of an outline backdrop. There's a couple things in here that we haven't yet touched on that I see are very that you have a great passion for, and One of them appears to be bike riding. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are as a rider and what kind of things you've done riding bicycles?
Oh my God. Okay. So I have to think of back home in St. Louis. I have to think of a friend of mine named Mike, who one day said, "Hey, we're going for a bike ride," and I was like, "Okay, great." So, me being Earl, right, 6'5", beautiful gay black man, I go out and I buy a bike, thinking that it's not going to cost me much money. That little 25 miles across the Mississippi Trail, or whatever it's called back home in St. Louis, completely changed my world. Because it was that moment in time that I got really present to, like, look how far you've come. Like, it was a physical manifestation of, look how far you've come. Look at what you achieved, right? Mm-hmm. Then in 2012, a friend of mine named Aaron was discovered that he was HIV positive, and then decided that he wanted to be proactive and asked me to do the AIDS Life Cycle Ride, which is a 545-mile bike ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Now, we lived in St. Louis. So, so shipping a bike, going over 2012, I did that bike ride, completely changed my life and what's possible in terms of my physical endurance, the whole 9 yards. That year, I raised a little over $3,000 to fight HIV/AIDS. But what I didn't realize...
How much was it that you raised?
I raised over $3,000 that year.
3,000, yes?
Plus.
Okay.
Plus, almost $4,000. I raised almost $4,000. That was 2012. 2013, I did the ride again. I then moved from St. Louis to California because and I had my girlfriend Susan Green with me, who is an amazing paint artist back home in St. Louis. And but cycling for me is a way to connect with the divine. Mm-hmm. It's a way for me to get back to center, right? Because when I'm out there riding, it's like I'm very present to the abundance and the grace that exists. Despite all the craziness, despite all the stresses of being a business owner and not making sales this month or whatever the case may be, once I get on that bike, it's like the God that I serve is just, it's an awe moment.
Beautiful.
And the reason, and with the AIDS life cycle thing, it also connects me back to helping out my community, because African Americans, we have the highest cases of HIV. So I'm trying to do what I can to find, be a part of the solution to find a cure instead of being a victim. Mm-hmm. And I'm also trying to, do my part. And so biking gives me that ability. I also teach group fitness, indoor cycling at two local gyms here in the Bay Area. And I also teach group fitness. But through cycling, man, it's like, I told my mom, I said, if something happens to me and they say I can't ride a bike, tell them, well, he will find a way to do it.
We'll find a way to do it.
Oh my God. Yes.
I get it. I have my passion in that area is it goes back and forth, but I don't think it's quite as deep as yours, but it's in swimming. And that's where I find my divine. And I think that they're actually, they're marginally related sports, and sometimes they are back to back in the triathlon and stuff like that. So I can relate to how important it is to, for me, when I get in the water, it's like, all right, all right, either game on or game off, depending which way you want to look at it. It's like, this is where I find God. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing about physical activity, physical, sports is that you don't have to be perfect to get to that space where you can find, peace, God, whatever you want to call it, right? You just have to be in movement.
Right. Exactly.
And, and it's like, I remember when I did my first 100 miles, I cried for like an hour because I had told myself like I couldn't do it.
Right.
And when I discovered at the end of that 100 miles, I couldn't figure out why I was crying, but I was crying and like I was celebrating. But now looking back on it, I figured out what it was, is that I just had proven to myself that I'm the one that tells myself what can or cannot be done.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm the one that is programming my subconscious mind to believe that and to go out and find proof of that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I don't,
Exactly.
yeah, like, and when I discovered that, I was like, oh my God, like, so now I'm on this new mission of understanding the subconscious mind, the power of the subconscious mind. And through that, one thing that we haven't talked about is that I've always thought that I was going to be an attorney, that I was going to go to law school. I've taken the LSAT 4 or 5 times, and still got the same score, 139, 140. But I've never applied, right? I never applied.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of days ago, COVID-19 has turned out to, this lockdown period has given me a lot of time to think and reflect, right? Trying to find the silver lining in the clouds, right? Being focused on what I can control. I discovered that I have been living my life from the point of view of that 19, 18-year-old who said he wants to go to law school, changed the judicial system, right? And it's been creeping in the background, and I've been comparing myself subconsciously to that image. And what I've done, thanks to the coursework that I've done through Landmark and the Wisdom course and people like yourself and all these other great folks, right? I've now upgraded that conversation to recognize that one of my other missions is to be such that I have the financial resources to hire attorneys to go out into the world and fight the good fight and legal.
Interesting. Interesting.
Oh, yes.
Really, really using the tools, really like expanding the possibilities of resources and really getting stuff done without having to, without being at the effect of the world around you. That's what I hear. Completely awesome.
Yeah, because
really cool.
Because with what's currently going on right now in the world, well, not in the world, here in the United States, and inequalities in the justice systems for Black and brown people, it is time that we start using the law that exists to hold those accountable for their misuse of the law.
Isn't it? Yeah. So we have a couple things that I want to take up. Now it seems like you brought us right to this edge, which I'm way, way happy to be here, or way able to take us into this hole. And that is like who you are for the African American community, who you are for those who are maybe, at risk, or maybe what's the word? Like,
underserved.
I was, that's the exact word that I was thinking of using. And I didn't know if you'd be comfortable with that. So underprivileged, I guess, or those who are disenfranchised, or those who are downtrodden, those who have sort of a less of an obvious hope of success in the world. Like who you are as a big man stand for those folks comes across in your speaking and in your writing as well. Can you say a little bit about that?
So I have to answer this question with this. The one thing that a lot of people don't know about me is that I grew up on Terry and Goodfellow in St. Louis, Missouri, in the heart of the hood. Mm-hmm. Our house was broken into when we were kids like 7 times. 7 times we had our house broken into before my mom got an alarm system, right? My parents had gotten divorced when I was in 2nd grade. I think I was 2nd grade, right? I have seen my share of street fights. I've seen my share of, cops, raiding people's homes. A neighbor up the street, somebody broke into their house and raped their mom. Like I have seen my share of, of stuff. And so when I tell people, I bring that up because who I am is, I was born in that generation where the African-American male was not expected to graduate from high school. I was born in the 70s, and I am now living proof of having a master's degree in English, a college degree, a business, well, actually 3 business, because I also do notaries and mortgages. But I'm also, for the African American community, I am now started to be that voice of like, you can do this. So that's why I started the YouTube channel with interviewing other people, right? That's why I decided to start doing the videos of me talking about insurance. That's why, when I've decided, trying to figure out, now I'm trying to figure out how do I get access to agencies here in the Bay Area that are targeting, disenfranchised African American youth or, Black and brown people. Because it's a different world here in the Bay Area than if I was back home in St. Louis. And so for my folks, I want to be that example. I'm not a basketball player. I'm not, a musician. I'm just a guy that's 6'5", that has found a way to navigate through this thing called America, and has decided that I'm going to bring as many of people that are willing to come along with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm going to do. And it started with me making sure that my kids, that people in my own family had an example to stand up to put themselves up against and go for, right? It started at home first. Mm-hmm. So my sister has her college degree. My brother has his own business. My sister's, she's got her business too. My oldest nephew is working. Teddy's got his own investment firm. Marquise Marquise, Traden, and Taylor are still in elementary school. Michi's graduated. Jada will be graduating in another year or two. Allison just graduated. Merritt has graduated. Evan is going to EMT school. He's now a supervisor at his job. And Nakia is about to graduate and become a physician assistant.
I'm speechless, Earl. And
my own mother went back to school and got her master's degree after I got.
Of course she did. I wouldn't even be surprised if she did that. I mean, the miracles that you're talking about are so they repeat themselves. They're reliable, and so there's something so magical about how you throw down. Like, I think my listeners will agree with me that you get to see what you get to see when we speak with you, Earl, is you get to see the cracks in between this content that you bring forth that really create you for the remarkable person that you are, the spectacular inspiration that you are as a human. And I really hear the value system that you have in place and the priorities of your family and the priorities of Afro-Americans, and then the priorities of, friends, and then the priorities of the human race, and really getting that, almost like Earl didn't ask to be born here either. But now that you're here, you might as well make a flipping difference. And that's what I hear that is just comes forth in every breath and every word that you utter. So thank you for being you, Earl Jones.
You are welcome. It's just like I said earlier, if I died today, there better be at least one person that could say my life is better because of Earl.
All right, Earl, here you go.
I'm not joking.
You better know that my life is better because of Earl Jones.
Because, somehow, some way, it's like I just have to. It's just who I am. I will confess, I have fought it for a long time. I have fought it. I have fought taking responsibility of my power. But lately, because, through the wisdom course, for those who don't know, that's another course through Landmark, and decided to become the wisdom course leader, and all the things I've been doing, the growth and development. I was like, I need to take control and own this, because there's lives at stake, right?
And there's lives at stake. Yep.
There's lives at stake. It's like, even on Facebook, I've decided to start posting things and try to post them in a way that generates conversation with people, raw conversations. And every now and then I've got to go in and go, okay, tone it down, right? But even recognizing that I can use that as a medium so that people can start talking about the tough stuff like race, religion, politics, like why you believe what you believe, come on, like dig a little deeper, right? Mm-hmm. And then most recent thing, I've had to get a little I've told some people, it's like, well, that point of view that you have is from a white person's point of view. Just take on that for you to begin to look at this objectively. You've got to let go of some things, which is the way that you've been socially conditioned to think about things as it relates to race. We all have been taught that way and stuff like that. And some people like going, well, when you put it like that, I didn't even realize that. I didn't think of that way. And so, it's because what I really would like to see is like everybody realizes that at the end of the day, regardless of your race, we all basically want the same thing. The question becomes, how do we create a world such that my circle, interacts with your circle, and we're connecting on those things that makes us common versus disagreeing on those things that, are disagreeable.
Awesome. Awesome, Earl. I could keep talking to you I mean, it's really awesome. And gosh, it's really fun to have sort of penetrated to your heart and to start really getting who you are as a person and the infectious contagion, if I dare use both those phrases, in these times of who you be and then what you create by being you for others to be with others too, Earl. So it's like who you get to create yourself to be affects others so that they can be with others in different ways. That's the impact you're making, Earl Jones. I just want you to know that. And that's every single day you make that impact. So thank you again. Beautiful.
Thank you for pointing that out, because I was like, I didn't see that till you just said that.
Yeah, for sure it's happening. For sure. At least 2 rounds out, if not 3. So, so that the people who deal with the people who deal with the people who deal with you are also affected. So it's really, really beautiful.
Yes. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show. I will confess, I was like, what are we going to talk about?
So why don't you tell my listeners how they might get a hold of you or be able to follow you or sign up with something that you're up to or, want to know more about you? How would they do that, Earl?
Oh, yes. You want to go find me on Facebook. It's Earl Jones Insurance. That's on Facebook. You can also find me on LinkedIn under Earl L. Jones. And then you can go to my website, which is https://agents.farmers.com/E-Jones. I'll send you the link to all of those. Yes.
Yeah, the link, and we'll have that on the link on the front edge on the cover for you too. We'll have that. We'll be able to publish that.
Awesome.
So that'll be on the introduction on the front edge of this. By the time this is airing, people will have access to it that they can click into it as well. Awesome.
Yes. Awesome. Fred, you have been such a gracious host. Just thank you for even having this conversation, because I'm just like going, wow. Yeah. Because you brought me present to, like I said, my power, right? And to the things I've accomplished. Because sometimes it's easy to forget, the little things that we do are wins.
Yes. Huge wins.
Yes.
Small wins in your life are huge wins in other people's lives sometimes. And that's what I think I got to notice in our conversation today as well.
Yes. All right, my friend.
You are a big man. You're a big, big man, Earl, and it's really great. And I love your vulnerability. I love your honor. I love your stand for others, and your sense of humor and your boyish grace and all sorts of things, Earl. And indeed, you are a beautiful Black man, and that's also true. And it's just a pleasure to talk to you, my 6'5" friend. And thanks for being on the show. Thanks for listening to the show. And wow. Another day ends, another podcast ends with an interview of just a spectacular person just being human. And all I got to say is welcome to humanity. Thanks again, Earl. Welcome to humanity.
Thanks, you guys. Welcome to humanity.
Hey, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. So, something I really loved about this interview with Earl Jones is just how timely it is. This is a man who I befriended, 1 or 2 years ago, and he's up to so many sweet and wonderful things in the world. His life has been magical and remarkable, but not always comfortable. And who he is for the planet is someone who's bringing love in every single corner And for me, it's just a deep inspiration to be part and to be honored with a conversation with Earl Jones. So maybe as you were listening, you thought of a person or maybe even a few people who really need to hear this episode. So go ahead and reach out to them now and invite them to listen and to subscribe to the Welcome to Humanity podcast. And while you're at it, I'd like to ask you a favor. Maybe you could take a moment to hit the subscribe button on your podcast player. That way, I'll be able to get you the latest episodes as they become available. And if you really appreciate what we're doing here, could you just take a few minutes and leave a review on Apple Podcasts? As it turns out, subscribes and reviews are the two major ways we can reach more listeners with the Welcome to Humanity podcast. So if these conversations that we have here contribute to your life in any big way, please pay it forward by subscribing and leaving a review. I would be truly grateful for your support. To catch up with past episodes, head on over to welcometohumanity.net/podcast. So until next time, this is Dr. Fred, and it's been another wonderful Welcome to Humanity podcast. Thank you so much for listening.